What's up, guys? Welcome back. It is Joe talking about the Kansas State Wildcats and the basketball transfer portal. And while I know there hasn't been a ton of news and a ton of guys hit the portal in the last couple of weeks, we've got a couple of guys to talk about in today's video that I am really excited about. It's been a while since K-State has had a couple of guys they could eye down and say, you know what, these guys would improve the squad right now. The reason I kind of wanted to make this video, obviously there's players I want to talk about specifically, but also I was a little bit hesitant because I didn't know what the approach was down the stretch. You know, Jerome Tang had mentioned, hey, we're going to fill this spot. We're going to fill these spots. K-State currently has 11 of 13 scholarship players taken care of. 2 guys still available, in theory. And as August continued on, it's more of that, well, are we going to move? Are we going to make a move? Are we going to pursue people? Because there's been some names. I mean, Jose Perez, a couple of West Virginia guys got in the portal late. And all around that area, there's been dudes to go after loosely. And K-State hasn't been super active. Obviously, we had some West Virginia ties for a little bit, but I was a little bit curious as to how K-State would handle a couple of talented guards that hit the portal today. Jerome Tang recently changed everything in my mind, basically by saying, hey, where we're at right now. He addressed where the squad's at right now. He says, we're an NCAA tournament team as it sits right now with the 11 guys we have. Obviously, it's less than ideal. Not to say that the tournament is less than ideal. That's not a valid take to say like, oh, we don't want that situation. But just to say the idea of the expectation of having 11 guys for a full college basketball season is not ideal because you're going to need a couple of guys. Even if there's guys redshirting, you're still going to need more guys to rotate in and play. And even just having somebody in foul trouble, having somebody to come in if somebody gets hurt. I mean, there's opportunities that K-State needs to fill. And Jerome Tang basically said, if we fill nobody, if we don't get these 2 spots filled out, we're an NCAA tournament team as it sits right now. We can be very, very good. We can be really good if we grab 2 more special players in the portal. And there's been a ton of confirmations from different coaches and different players and different podcasts and medias basically saying like, okay, we want an experienced guard who can score the basketball, and we also want a big. If we can grab that, that'll be a perfect scenario. Get another big, get another talented guard in the portal, and then we're good to go. Today's video, I don't have anything to touch on with the talented big situation. I just don't think there's the right guy in the portal as of right now. But there's good guards that have hit the portal in the last week, and I want to talk about 2 guys today, starting off with the dude that I think would be an absolute 10 out of 10 perfect fit in Manhattan. And I know I'll go into detail here in a minute, but just roll with me on this journey a little bit. There's a dude that scores the basketball at a high rate entering the portal in the month of August that could really, really benefit from playing under Jerome Tang and then playing for K-State. We could both mutually benefit in a great relationship between both Coach Tang coaching the kid and the kid contributing big minutes for K-State. At this point in the portal, it's going to take a very specific player to be a starter right now. A plug-and-play starter to jump in. You know, the only spots that are, I mean, not even areas of concern, but spots that could be contested, Tyler Perry solidified as a starter. Arthur Kaluma, Naquan Tomlin, those 3 guys are solidified as starters. We don't know the next 2 guys coming in. Obviously, I would assume that it'd be a Cam Carter, Jarron Coleman situation or a, Cam Carter, David Gasson, however you want to say that situation. But I think it's safe to say that K-State is active. The 2 dudes that have hit the portal recently, and I'll base this off of this. I don't want to give you guys too much that's speculative to go off of, so fair warning here. I've heard some rumblings in the K-State sports community. I've had a couple of guys reach out to me and mention just, hey, be on alert for a couple of moves here this month. I've heard some rumblings of K-State being interested in a player or 2 this offseason right now as it sits for the next week or so. That's what I've heard. And while I don't want to let the cat out of the bag and say which player this is, I did want to talk about 2 guys that I think could be great fits just because I don't know the full extent of what Coach Tang's interested in right now, but I do know there's 2 guys in the portal that are very high-volume guys that can contribute. And realistically, if you want to use deductive reasoning, it's probably people of this stature. It's not going to be a guy that averages 3-4 points, a season, has bounced around, whatever the case is. If K-State's interested in somebody, they're probably going to average about 15, 16, 17 points, 13, 14, 15 points. Someone who's going to be a real contributor at this point. Because if they wanted to fill it with just a kind of a role player guy, they could have done that months ago, to be completely honest with you. So starting things off, I know I've rambled a little bit here. I'm going to jump right into it. There's one guy that I absolutely love. And I know that you're going to make the argument a little bit of he hasn't been super successful at the D1 level right as it sits right now. There's a guard that hit the portal the other day, and I'm going to pull up some stats over here. So if I look off this way, that's why. Quez Glover. He's a guard for the Samford Bulldogs, or formerly a guard for the Samford Bulldogs. Hit the portal. Started his career, I believe, let me pull this up here. Started his career at Florida, did okay. It wasn't anything that was ridiculous. Went to Samford and was an absolute unit. I mean, the guy could play. Let me read you the stat difference here. Started off at Florida, 4.4 points per game in his freshman season, 2.5 in his sophomore year. Goes to Samford, so takes a little bit of a step down, not worried about playing as a freshman at Florida. In 2021, first of all, he was an all-conference player. The guy averaged 19.2 points per game. And that right there, and hear me out here, that's only 30% shooting from three. And I know it sounds hideous at first, but hear me out. The guy's gotten better every year. Started off as a freshman, 24%. Didn't get a ton of looks. 25% sophomore year. 30% junior year. Senior year, 37.8 from three. I'm not sitting here saying this kid could be a 40% shooter immediately, but this dude can score the basketball. In the last 2 years, junior year, the guy averaged 19.2 points per game. In terms of rebounds, 2.8. I mean, he's not a gigantic guard. He's 6 foot tall. Nothing, ridiculously tall or physically imposing, I would say. But in 31 minutes a game, the guy averaged 19.2 points per game and 5 assists, just about 5 assists, 4.5-ish per game. That was his junior. Senior year came back, 14 points per game, 14.7, so closer to 15, 2.5 rebounds, 2.1 assists on just about 50% shooting from the field. The dude can ball. And I'm going to be selfish about this one and say this is the guy I want very badly out of anybody in the portal right now. There's not a ton of guys entering the portal in August that you're like, this is a dude you have to have. There's very few guys that fit that description. Quez Glover is one. Selfishly, this dude has a really high ceiling as a scorer, and that's what K-State needs. I mean, we'll talk about another guy here in a minute, and I'll give you my thoughts on him as well. Glover has the higher ceiling in my mind in terms of pure scoring the basketball. In terms of defense, there's guys on this roster that can give that to you. I think Dorian Finister is going to be an excellent defender. I think Taj Manning's an excellent defender. There's going to be guys on this roster that will compete, coast to coast on the defensive side of things. That's not really what we're in the market for right now. Obviously, if you get a guy that's ridiculously good at everything, that's the ideal goal. Quez Glover is a scorer. This is a dude that could be on the court at any time. As a ball handler, he's played both point guard and off ball, and he's been successful in college basketball. If he gets to K-State, and my sources, my hunches are kind of, giving me some idea of maybe this is the opportunity. I've heard rumblings of both these guys as potential, and then also a couple of other guys that aren't, I'm not as excited for, I would say, candidly. These two are the guys that I'm really focused on. Quez Glover would be a perfect fit in Manhattan. Coming out of high school, 3-star prospect, and I believe, Florida bounced around. He ended up committing to BYU on May 3rd. For whatever reason, bounced out of the portal. I don't know if it was an academic thing or what the case was. You can probably find it by Googling it. Basically, hit the portal again August 6th. So it didn't just stick. The guy's looking for somewhere else. It's late in the cycle. He can find somebody to play for. 6-foot-tall guard, 3-star player. He's developed far beyond just the 3-star rank. But let me move on here to the next player. Another guard here to talk about. Jarron Coleman of Ball State. So Ball State Cardinals, I know, once again, it's not a Big 12 basketball level team. It's not somebody that's going to be ridiculous. Jarron Coleman's upside as an all-around player is significantly higher in my mind than Quez Glover's. Now, I want you to take that with a grain of salt. Jarron Coleman has a much higher ceiling as an all-around player. Quez Glover as a scorer has an all-around type ceiling. Jarron Coleman is a guard. He's 6'5", 210 pounds, so he's a bigger body dude. And he's got some mismatch in his game for sure. This past season at Ball State, just to give you an idea, averaged 14.3 points per game, almost 5 rebounds a game, and 3.8 assists on 38% shooting from the field. And while that might sound bad at first, that's pretty average for a guard. Anywhere you'll see from 35% to 48%. I mean, that's just kind of how guards do because they put up a lot more shots per game than some of the bigs you'll see. This is a dude that could really be a Desi Sills type guy, 100%. He's a bigger body. He's a physical guy. He finishes at the rim. He can contest, sideline to sideline. The guy's ready to go. I think Jerome, Tang, and staff could be interested in Coleman, but he has definitely had some inefficiency issues. I mean, there's a lot of just question marks in his game, I would say right now, from an offensive standpoint. He's about a 65-70% shooter from the free throw line, which that can improve, but usually to tell how good of a shooter or a scorer a guy is, you can look at their free throw numbers as a good example. However, if you want to throw an entire wrench in that, as a freshman, he was a 32% shooter from three. Sophomore year, he added 10% to that, was a 42% shooter. Then goes back to 30, then goes to 35%. I'm not entirely sure what we'd be getting out of Jarron Coleman, but either way from the two guys, you get guys that average 15, 16 points a game at this late in the cycle. That's a great add. K-State has a real, inclination to get either of these guys. Bring in one guard now, bring in one big later. My personal favorite would be Quez Glover, but I do know that Jarron Coleman would be a great fit. So if we get Coleman, it's not a bad signing by any means. It's just a difference in the player. One player is here to score, one player is here to ball handle. That was probably a weird verb to say, but whatever. And the other player is here to contest, be an all-around dude, which that might be a little bit, that might be more what you want. I think right now with where we're at, we've got a lot of guys that can fit the Coleman type of role of what I've described. So that's why I'm kind of more on the Quez Glover train, but I don't know what's going to happen yet. All I know is that K-State has someone in the portal that they're a little bit interested in. I don't even know for a fact if it's either of these two guys. I've just heard some rumblings around different players, but these two are kind of the cream of the crop in terms of who is available late in the cycle and guys I'd love on the team. But that being said, guys, that's going to do it for today's video. I didn't mention at the start. I apologize for forgetting. We are like 40 subs away from 1,000. At 1,000 subs, I'm going to be giving away a lavender quarter zip. I'm sure you guys have seen what they look like. I've worn them in a couple of videos. But if you haven't, go ahead and look them up. We're going to give away one of those at 1,000 subs, and it will be incredible. So if you're interested in getting your hands on that, go ahead and consider subscribing. Other than that, guys, I hope you have a wonderful day, and I will keep you updated if I hear anything else in the portal from either of these guys or what the case is. And we'll go forward from there. But I appreciate you guys watching, and I appreciate all the support. Thank you guys so much. I hope you have a wonderful day, and go Cats.